Good evening, I'm Sarah Chan.
And I'm Khalem Chapman.
And this is What's Not to Know.
On today's show, we'll be talking about the future of female. We'll be discussing the role of women in politics, how the world has changed, allowing women to take work in roles that were once stereotyped to be male only. And we'll be speaking with former Women's Royal Air Force officer Pamela Todd. We'll also be discussing the rise of women in sport.
So there's a day every year dedicated to all you women out there. And that day is International Women's Day. It's an opportunity for women in the community to come together and celebrate.
Holly Allburn finds out what's going on in Nottingham for International Women's Day this year.
Isn't it about time that we prevent gender inequality? The Vine Community Centre in Nottingham is holding an event to celebrate the achievements of women. The event marks International Women's Day, which is held on the 8th of March and has been running since 1911. It continues to grow global support each year. Women of different communities come together to call for action on gender equality. Different speakers, each with unique stories to tell, come in throughout the day to talk about the women of their local community. In the workplace, women are also treated at a disadvantage because of their gender. But this is changing, especially in professions such as the police service.
I've come into the service at a great time actually, where there's more women in higher roles within the police, so it's actually quite a confident thing really to say that it is happening, and people in my sort of service are climbing up in the ranks and things. It's really good.
So why is equality important?
Is something that is, an important cornerstone of every community and every family, and it has to be appreciated that girls and boys must be treated equally and must learn equally, must earn equally.
All this talking can work up an appetite, so it's thanks to the ladies for serving our community.
I am very, very proud of women's achievement throughout the world, whether they have been prime ministers, they've been leaders of their business, inventors, writing books, stories, teaching, and my profession is teaching and learning. And we have a lot of women around us and men, and all of them make a huge contribution.
Regardless of race, age, size or background, we are all women, and they can do something magical that not even the world's most influential men can do, and that's bring life into the world. Thanks to all you women out there. Holly Allburn, What's Not to Know.
Women in politics and those who want to go into it are still finding the political life difficult, even 100 years after they won the right to vote. Here's What's to Know reporter Nara Casimiro to tell us more.
It's 100 years since women got the right to vote, but there are still barriers for women to get into politics. Linda Uddings is Labour councillor for Basford on Nottingham City Council. Fewer than half of councillors in Nottingham are women.
It's sad to say that there are still, 100 years after some women got the vote, there are still many barriers to women participating in politics. I think time is a barrier for women because in society we bear the burden of caring responsibilities. And the one important thing is that if you get involved in public life, you have to have the time to do it. And we'd really like to do is to encourage more women to put themselves forward for public life. Doesn't have to be as a councillor, could be a magistrate on a school governing body. There are lots of different roles that women can take up. But the point is that we make a positive difference to every organisation that we get involved in. And, I think if we get anything from this year, if we sow the seed of interest in young women to actually get involved in public life, I think we will have succeeded.
Went to the streets of Nottingham to find out why there are still not more young women getting involved in politics.
Some women find debate a difficult thing, I think. It's quite controversial. I've got lots of friends who don't like debate, they don't like controversy.
That it's because it's quite a male-dominated area. and I think that the representations that men give in terms of the older generation that are still there, there's still quite a lot of sexism.
Women feel that if they go into politics, they won't be heard, they'll be disrespected, they won't be given the same respect as men have been given throughout all of the years. And unfortunately, that's the case around the world. And when you have a female politician versus a male politician, for some reason there's always more backlash and slander in regards to women as it is to men. And
politics still remain an unattractive field for young women. However, with efforts from political parties to get more people involved, the future of women in politics is looking brighter. Nara Casimiro reports for CBJ News.
And it's not just in politics that women can face barriers. In the workplace, pregnancy and maternity discrimination can prevent women from receiving certain job opportunities. It's an issue that's rarely discussed because it's almost impossible to prove, and often women face it without realising. So here we have Megan Bond to explain more.
Hi everyone, so it's currently illegal for UK employers to discriminate against women who are pregnant or have recently given birth. But pregnancy and maternity discrimination is still a huge issue. Last month, the Equality and Human Rights Commission highlighted the extent of the problem during recruitment. A survey of 1,106 senior decision makers in business found that around a third agree it's reasonable to ask women about future plans to have children, whilst just under 60% agree a woman should have to disclose whether she's pregnant. A worrying 44% agree women who've had more than one pregnancy in the same job can be a burden to their team. Pregnant women and new mothers are all too often labelled lazy or a liability by sexist employers who are unwilling to adapt workplace practices to accommodate them, but basing their decision to hire a woman on whether she's of childbearing age or has a young child comes at their own cost. It means they aren't always employing the best person for a job, ultimately having a negative impact on their business performance. Gender equality policies in Sweden ensure far fewer mothers face discrimination, meaning they have more women in work than we do. So is it really surprising that they have one of the most competitive economies in the world? Not really. The problem is this: until employers look after women when they become mothers, not enough women are going to be reaching the higher positions within a company, and therefore not reaching their full potential. I'm Megan Bourne, and it's back to you in the studio.
Many people would say that being a mother is the hardest job in the world, and pregnancy is definitely no easy feat. With morning sickness and the growing pressure of having to raise a child, sometimes labour isn't the hardest part of having a child. We spoke to expectant first-time mother Sarah Shah about her own ideas and expectations about motherhood.
Expectations, I'm expecting it to be really challenging, tiring, quite scary, but also really rewarding, and yeah, just kind of mostly scary, but I think it'll be really exciting as well.
An all-women's theatre group has been set up in Nottingham to encourage women to take part and work together to produce shows.
The Aurora Theatre Group meets fortnightly to improve females' confidence. With the majority of theatre audience being women, the group's main message is to tell stories that women want to hear.
They argue that women have always been underrepresented and objectified in the arts, believing that now is the time women become represented in a realistic way, so that the audience can really relate.
Part of the problem with this is that we've had thousands and thousands of years of a male gaze or male viewpoints, particularly on women's stories, and there's been less ability to actually find really tangible stories. Women have often been categorised into you're either a mother or a beautiful woman that's a sexualised object, or you're an old hag, and there's really kind of quite narrow places that you could go and quite stereotypical typecasting. That's massively changing now because women are able to start telling their own stories and go, well, actually, that's not me. This is me. No, this is me. No, actually, this is me. And we're starting to see a great different kind of spectrum, and that allows women to then view these stories and believe in themselves a little bit more and believe that they're okay.
While women have been making significant strides in the world, there are still areas that have a major gender imbalance. The music industry has come under particular scrutiny, and in light of Nottingham has declared that has decided to take a stand and celebrate all the women in music.
Music promotion company DHP have organised an event at rescue rooms to highlight the issues and how we can tackle them. From tour managers to radio presenters to singer-songwriters, the event saw what people from every inch of the industry had to say.
I'm not sure that women are completely represented well in the music industry. I'm just basing this on gigs, so there's a lot of events recently that we've seen in 2018 that only cater for guys. So I think Wireless Festival is quite a good one to talk about. And I love Wireless Festival, I've been a few times. But this year I think there's been a really predominant male lineup, and that kind of caused a stir and opened up the discussion that maybe women aren't represented that well.
So last month marked 100 years since women got their right to vote. But even after that, women struggled for equality. Patricia Borica explores the journey that women went on to get to where they are today.
In the late 18 and early 1900s, the suffragettes fought hard to get the women's rights, but they were still seen as second-class citizens. It was not until 1918 that women got the rights to vote, but only so when they were over the age of 30. Despite their ability to vote, only 212 women were doctors. In 1922, females were given the right to inherit property in the same way that men could. In 1928, the women's voting age was lowered to the same as men's. By the 30s, around a third of women in Britain worked outside the home, but they were discriminated against and seen as if they were stealing the jobs from men. The NHS was introduced in 1948, and then women could get free healthcare. Before, only the insured, which was mostly men, benefited from it. The pill was introduced in the early 60s, but only married women were given access to it. In 1967, other women were also given access to contraception such as the pill. In the same year, abortion was legalised in the UK. More than 600 women attended the first National Women's Liberation Movement conference, where they discussed equal rights for women and free nurseries. In 1988, Julie Hayward is the first woman to win a case under the Equal Pay Act. And in the late 90s, the UK general election saw 117 women MPs elected into the parliament. Now, women are still striving for equal pay and representation, but women's rights have come a very long way.
Now we turn over to a more military-based segment, where we'll be interviewing Pamela Todd, a former officer in the Women's Royal Air Force. The WRAF was a female operating group of the Royal Air Force before it fully merged with today's modern Air Force in 1994. Hi Pam, thanks for joining us today on What's Not to Know. So what was the Women's Royal Air Force and what was your experience in it?
I loved every minute of it. I served for 6 years as an officer, and it was the best part of my life.
What was your favourite part about being in the WRAF?
It was working alongside my colleagues in a situation, it was a military situation, and the camaraderie and the friendship was second to none. You made friends there that you have for life. It was also a way of life. It was not a job. You lived it 24 hours a day, and that was amazing.
Yeah, it must have been an amazing experience. And obviously, the UK military has made several leaps, allowing women to perform more roles in recent decades. So what roles were women unable to do when you were serving?
Well, they obviously couldn't have a combat role, which they can now. They couldn't be engineers because they didn't like them anywhere near an aircraft. And they could not be in the RAF regiment, which is a completely separate thing.
Yeah, and how far do you think we as a nation have come with regards to female equality in the workplace? And do you think we can do more to give women more opportunities?
Within the military, because the WRAF became part of the RAF, that was a huge step forward. And of course, women can now be pilots. There was an RAF officer who was a Red Arrow, quite amazing. I mean, that would never have happened outside of the military. And so within the military, the huge steps forward. Outside of the military, we're getting there. There's a woman prime minister for the second time. A lot of big companies have now got CEOs who are women. But of course, there are always going to be the men who don't like it, the men who don't think women should be there. They have other places for women. And also you've got the pay gap, which is something that within certain areas, not everywhere, within certain areas is a huge issue.
That's very true. Thank you so much for joining us on What's Not to Know, Pam.
When celebrating women, it is so important to acknowledge just how far they have come with being in charge of their own destinies. There was a time when young girls were raised to become the stereotypical housewife and mother, but fast forward 60 years and how the tables have turned. We are now in a world where a woman can be a mother and have a career at the same time, without being judged or ridiculed. Our young girls of today are being told they can be anything they set their mind on, and still have a family and children to come home to, if they so wish. Since childcare vouchers were introduced in 2015, increasing access to childcare, more mums than ever are swapping their housework for their briefcases. Between 1995 and 1997, stay-at-home mothers dropped from 15% to 13.5%. Now just 1 in every 11 mothers is a stay-at-home mum.
I always work after when I finished my college and had my degree. And I've been brought up in working family, so everybody's been working. It's never been a certain decision like you have to or you don't have to. It's been my choice to do and decide what I want to do in my life and make a decision if I want to work or not. And my decision was in my life, I like to work and I want to go to work, and I always will have job, and that's how I enjoy my life.
Over recent years, women's sport has risen in terms of coverage and participation. Jessica Ennis, Rebecca Adlington and Ellie Simmons have all set new standards and are proving that women can compete at the same level as men. What's not to know, Khalem Carthy recently spent some time with local female basketball team, the Wildcats.
Nottingham's largest professional women's basketball team, the Nottingham Wildcats, are one of many clubs across the city that are encouraging women to get involved in sport. The Wildcats have teams of various ages, including an under-14s, under-16s and 2 senior teams. The Division 1 senior team have had great success in recent times, including a WBBL Cup win over Scottish side Caledonia in January of this year. Wildcats players say they have seen a real increase in interest over the duration of their time at the club.
I've been here 3 years and it's gradually increased every single year I've been here, and that's definitely great to see. I know
I've been here like 6 months, and like they're trying really hard to make it bigger and bigger, which is I think it's important. But yeah, she's been here for 3 years, so she can see the difference, and I'm agree. They're trying really hard, and this is good.
As well as an increase in participation, women's sports have also seen an increase in media coverage over the last few years. But despite the club's efforts to market themselves, the increase in participation and media exposure, Wildcats coach Dave Greenway believes more needs to be done for women's sports to reach its full potential.
It's growing. It's still nowhere, don't get me wrong, it's still nowhere where it needs to be. We as clubs, we as the council, the league, Basketball England, we all need to do more. But you can see the interest starting, and I think we all need to just push ourselves to actually help that grow as much as possible.
Khalem Carthy, What's Not to Know.
Joining us today is Athia and Regan, 2 cheerleaders from Nottingham Trent Tigers. So do you think it's harder for guys to get into cheerleading?
I don't think it's hard for guys to get into cheerleading in cheerleading as a broad sense, but it's definitely hard for guys to get into cheerleading at university. I feel like there's a big stigma that it's a girl sport, it's really girly, it's standing on the sidelines, but if you look at the broader aspect, which is all-star cheerleading, you'd find there's actually a lot more boys than there are girls, and they're definitely a lot stronger than us as well.
Yeah.
Do you feel pressure to look a certain way as a cheerleader?
I don't at all. Within cheer, when you first join up, you expect everyone to be really skinny, really pretty, but when you get in there, you realise everyone's just the same. Everyone's in the same boat. You all think there's the stigma, and there's really not. Everyone's just nice and looks exactly the same and has the same insecurities, I guess.
So obviously, as a cheerleader, there's all these stereotypes of being a blonde bimbo. So how do you overcome these as president of cheer?
NT cheerleading is very inclusive. Everyone is welcome to join, no matter your sex, your religion, your ethnicity, and that's one of the ways that we can encourage that there isn't a stigma. Also, I always remind the girls and the boys in our society that when they go out and they go to charity events and they go on nights out, affiliated to NTU and the university, that they're representing us not only as a sports club, but as a brand and a community. And so we obviously want the best for them and we want them to come out in a positive light, but also they're at the mature age where they realise that they want to be doing well for themselves as well.
Of course.
Are there any events you've done recently to promote females in sport?
We hold a showcase, which was in January, where we invite other teams, like all girls teams and boys, down to perform with us in Nottingham. And it's for charity. We have a raffle, and we have giveaways, and it's a great way for everyone to get together and showcase like each other's talents. And we also have Trent Girl Can as well.
Yeah, so we do Trent Girl Can, which is a university campaign that NTU run, and it just encourages participation in all sports. So it's great that our cheerleaders can go down and support girls playing football, girls playing hockey, and all those other sports.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us today. As we're talking all things female, none of us are stranger to the infamous Mother's Day. It's a celebration we've known about since we were in primary school, writing cheesy messages to our mums and handmade cards. Here's Simran Bhatti, who found out what people got up to this Mother's Day.
Thanks for that, guys. So Mother's Day was early this weekend and it celebrated the relationship between a mother and her child. But I wanted to find out exactly how this holiday affected everyone's pocket. Is Mother's Day just another materialistic holiday, or is it something which people actually care about? And how much did Nottingham spend? Let's find out.
I think Mother's Day is really important, but I spoke to my housemates and they said they weren't buying their mums anything, so I felt like maybe I shouldn't. But I couldn't come down, so I bought my mum some makeup before, last time when I came down and gave it to her, and then I just called her and said Happy Mother's Day.
My mum came down. Obviously money's a bit tight in it, so I drew her a sketch. It was good though, Marina saw it. It was a good joy. Got her some flowers, took her for a meal. Yeah.
See, I don't really think it should be about how much you spend. It's more about the effort you take to find something that either your mother or your child's mother will like. It's more about the effort in making the mother feel proud that their child has put that effort in.
So as you can see, it's clear that for plenty of people in Nottingham, Mother's Day actually wasn't that much of a big deal. People may have gone out, got them flowers and a little something, but it's not an occasion where a lot of people spend money. Thank you, Simran Bhatti. What's not to know?
Last Sunday marked a tradition that we celebrate every year in honour of a special someone, our mums.
Year on year, our mums do countless acts of random kindness for us, which they're most likely taken for granted. Our reporter Charlotte Bradbury took to the streets of Nottingham to find out what messages people want to give back to their mums.
I posted my card to my mum on Mother's Day. Let's go and see what kind messages people have to say to their mums. So now I've got my frame, I'm sure mums everywhere have received flowers, cards and chocolate today, but I'm going to speak to the people of Nottingham themselves.
I've already sent her a card in the post using my quilling skills.
Nice.
And it's due to come in a couple of days, so hopefully she'll really love it.
So why do you love your mum?
I love her because she knows every lyric to Kanye West.
Do you have a favourite meal that your mum cooks?
Oh, I do. I think that's probably got to be fajitas, actually. My mum's fajitas are amazing.
Good shout. And what about a favourite song?
Oh, it's going to have to be Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. Absolute banger.
I'd like to tell my mum how much I love her and how she makes an absolutely fantastic macaroni cheese sauce.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with me all the time because I know I can be annoying.
So I think it's fair to say there's a lot of love for our mums everywhere. This is Charlotte Bradbury, What's Not to Know.
I'm afraid that's all for today. For more updates, follow us on Twitter at What's Not to Know. I'm Sarah Chan.
And I'm Khalem Chapman. Thank you for joining us on What's Not to Know.